Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Um, and I'm joined by a special guest here in this sort of informal chat and interview here, Jack Hadfield. How are you, sir?
I'm doing all right. Good to be on. How's yourself?
Great, thank you. And Jack is a independent journalist who's written for Breitbart, and also a director. And I believe I do remember this one. This one was it Destination Dover? Um,
Yeah, that's the one.
yeah.
Filmed in God, October 2020. It was came out June 2021, give or take.
Yeah, and very relevant to what we're discussing tonight is the asylum seekers in hotels who have been placed there by the government around the country. Um, and this just goes to show how long, Jack, this has been going on for. That this story has developed, and it's now becoming uh, these people who are in hotels, who are dotted around countries, part of the country, and um, yeah, we'll be talking about what's been happening thus far. So Jack, just give us a quick summary. What has triggered? Because this has all happened really at the Bell Hotel in Epping. Um, what triggered the protests in Epping?
Sure. So the initial trigger of the Bell Hotel Epping protests was the arrest and charge of a 38-year-old Ethiopian asylum seeker who had been done for sexually assaulting a 14-year-old schoolgirl in the middle of town, propositioning her then. And that came out earlier this month. And after that had news had broken within the town, people then very quickly started protesting. That was on the Monday and the Thursday a couple weeks ago. And I first turned up in Epping on the Sunday after there had been a little bit of violence, a little bit of back and forth between Antifa agitators who, obviously, as now has been admitted, the police escorted into town and then bussed back out in their police vans back to the tube station. So since the previous Sunday, so not this Sunday, the Sunday before, I've been down at every protest I can be, getting all the footage, speaking to people. And what I've seen, especially in Epping, it's not been like after Southport where there was just a pure outbreak of violence and anger, purely sort of immigration. Specifically, a lot of this has been focused, targeted on protecting women and girls from being sexually assaulted, murdered, etc. And there doesn't seem to be your usual sort of um, types who would turn out for this as much as it's just been ordinary local people, concerned about what's happening to their mothers, their sisters, their daughters.
It has been quite nice to see, particularly with the Epping protest, that it is locals. You have and we know, like, we've seen these sorts of protests before in the past. You mentioned Southport. Tends to be, you have people from have different political agendas will turn up there, and they'll do their thing and go. But I think what was nice with Epping was that it was the locals, it was people of all ages, um, men and women equally. I mean, there was a lot of women there, in particular, mothers, um, those who wouldn't usually um, possibly attend these sorts of demonstrations, but um, it it and what you I think, quite a big miscalculation has been the response. And you had the sort of I guess you could say you had the disastrous sort of PR by the chief inspector of Essex, who what was it? He went on camera, said no, there was no police escort. And I don't know. I think it was it Wesley Winter who actually managed to capture some footage of the escort, or somebody managed to get them when they were arriving. Maybe it was Wesley Winter when they were leaving, and then he was sort of proven wrong in real time and had to sort of backtrack the previous statement. And so and then that sort of added more fuel to the fire, that there was this collusion with the protesters, with those in the government assignment and the police. It felt it sort of inflamed situations more.
Yes, no, mm, yes, no, exactly. No, I believe it was Martin Gauci, how you pronounce it, Gauci, who got some of the footage there. But obviously, Wesley has been down in Epping, around other places as well. I've been seeing him pretty regularly over the last couple of weeks or so. Like I will say, that's the only that's been the difference between sort of the right and the left here in terms of the faces you recognise at the protests. Going across the country, I've been at Epping, I was at the Britannia Hotel in Canary Wharf, I was in Norwich on Saturday, I was just in Waterlooville, just north of Portsmouth, just yesterday. Um, for on the side of the right, the only people that you recognise turning regularly up to these protests in various locations are your independent journalists and your sort of regular sort of commentator activists like young Bob from Turning Point UK, who's been turning up to a few and doing some speeches there. But otherwise, it's all completely locally organized. People don't come from really far afield to go to these protests. There's been a couple of people, maybe, someone who's just come from a couple towns over to get to Epping, but you're not making 2-3 hour massive long, train journeys or coach journeys from the center of London or elsewhere to get to these places. Whereas that is the case with Stand Up to Racism. I've seen multiple people at the Britannia Hotel and then in Epping, the organizers who literally are then being bussed in from all across the town. It was very funny when they had signs in Epping saying, Epping welcomes asylum seekers and, whose streets, our streets. Well, none of you are from Epping. All of you are going on the tube straight back home to central London. It's not your streets, it's the streets of the locals who you're counter protesting against and whose town, you've just invaded to make a point that this town welcomes asylum seekers when it absolutely does not.
Yeah, and these counter protesters who, really, I don't think have come off very particularly well, or not like in previous protests. Um, the organization, so you have stand up to racism, you have like your socialist workers I mean, we've seen the banners. It's usually like a very it's like a sort of perverse sort of brownies like level badge system that they have of all different titles. But you have like these different, buzzword names and organizations. um so organization wise, who are the people organizing? Is because I've actually had a sort of follower of my channel who has sent me a letter where this was quite some time ago, but there was a demonstration in the West Country where you had the UKIP people, and you had Unison and members of other unions sending out emails, letters, what have you, to their members, encouraging them to go down there, informing them of like the police liaison officers, all these sorts of things. And so is this like a similar thing? Is there like a union? For people who don't know, in the United Kingdom, the unions are one of the same with the Labour Party. They are a branch of within the Labour Party, which is the governing party of the UK.
Yes, no, it is exactly that. So if you look at Stand Up to Racism, for example, it's a sister organization of Unite Against Fascism. So they have many of the same board members. So just looking at the Unite Against Fascism, the key people over there, the chair is Steve Hart, who is the political officer of Unite the Union. The vice chair is Christine Blower, who's the general secretary of the NUT. One of their other vice chair is Jennifer Moses, who's the national official for equality and training at the NASUWT. Bunch of others are all union people, ex-MEPs, all Labour, all unions. So Stand Up to Racism is a fully union organized, backed, funded system. It's not something like Hope Not Hate, etc., which has the funding mechanism, which is you have a charity, and then you have a political arm, and the charity gets government grants, and then you funnel that over to the political arm as Hope Not Hate. seems to be doing. Um, so there's no government funding that's going onto this other than funding via the unions, if there are any. So there's no I believe there was a tweet about that it was getting like 1.5, 1.6 million from the government in lottery grants. There was a little bit of confusion there about another similarly named organization. So stand up to racism, and these people in particular, all union funded, organized. So that's why you have the big glossy pre-printed posters. You have this organization. You have these thugs who are supposedly private security, like Paul Sillett, who's one of them, who turns up to these protests and just wears security badges and then harasses people. As you said, mentioned Wesley Winter earlier. When I got footage of this man, Paul Sillett, telling him to shut his camera off, putting his hand over there, being very aggressive, telling him to go. And then the police had to tell Sillett that Wesley was just as welcome to film and be present at these places, just as much of a right to film as he did. He's been an anti-fascist thug for many years. He once threatened Count Dankula and Tim Pool in the middle of London a good few years ago. He said he didn't give a stuff about child grooming gangs. I'm slightly paraphrasing that, but that was the general
Mm.
sentiment. So these people are organized, paid, and that they are all completely run by the unions.
Yeah, it's quite, and when you look at it like that, you could probably it's easier to see the link of um these counter protesters, the police, and how that relationship is there. And I think most people, we sort of know about it, but it's um when you actually see it, it sort of is just a reaffirming that position. Um, and in many ways, it reminds me of like a, I mean, as someone who's sort of keen on history, I think back to like the French Revolution and the sort of reigns of terror in France and the Soviet Union. You had like these bands of criminals who worked for the party. They were affiliated with the party, and their sort of role was to or in France with the various like the Jacobin clubs and stuff, and they would be thuggish criminal types, and they would go out, and they wouldn't be necessarily like the police force or the whatever the guarding force at the time was, but they would in basically they would target political opponents. They'd be straight up just targeting political opponents, and had the support of the state. I mean, this was the way the state would attack their enemies. And this is how I've always viewed these sorts of people, that this is the will of the state being pushed upon us, but they can't do it directly, of course, but not because they haven't got the cojones probably in my mind to do that, but this is their sort of passive way of trying to do it. um So, as a result of the protest, because in Epping so far, Jack, it's been successful. The hotel, Bell Hotel, has been closed. The council voted in favour of closing the hotel.
I actually, yeah. So slight correction on that. The hotel has not been closed. What the council did was it voted to support the closure of the Bell Hotel because it's not actually within the council's remit to do so. It's a full, central Home Office decision. So there are
Right.
still migrants in there. The hotel is still open, and protest is still going to be ongoing. There's going to be another one today, I believe, at 6 p.m. So if you're in Epping, go out and support the local
Yeah.
people there at 6. I'll be at another protest. But yes, currently the Bell Hotel remains open, but obviously it's more pressure on the central government that the council has voted in favour of closing it.
Oh, I see. So that whole sort of performance by the council several days ago was just a way of alleviating pressure on their part, from the protesters.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Well, yeah. Again, if people who live in Epping, you do turn out and protest for that, because that's important. Now with yourself, Jack, you attended Hotel Britannia protest at Canary Wharf. Few days ago, several days ago now, and there was one incident which has sort of gone somewhat semi-viral and has been put about, and it was interaction. I think you were trying to interview a Green councillor, um, and who this youngish girl, a Green councillor, who was then giving her sort of the usual rhetoric on safe asylum routes and all that sort of stuff, and she uh, basically got a response which I don't think she was expecting. She looked quite shocked to the core, to be
Yes, I
honest.
mean that's putting it mildly.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I have got the clip here. I'll just see if I can bring it up quickly. Um, and this isn't a family-friendly show, so don't worry. We'll it will be uh okay to. I'll just rewind that.
I just think it's really, really important for people to understand that there are no safe and legal routes for refugees to come to this country. This is the only way they can come here. It's on a boat to pay. Yeah, they've got the whole of Europe. Why should we put that burden on the rest of Europe?
But do you
know,
not think
like, we're still have to take responsibility for the fact that we have a lot of stakes in the conflict and the climate crisis that causes people to be refugees and have to come to another country. They're not choosing to leave their country at their home, their children, their parents.
our fucking children, you silly cunts. Of our children, of this fucking racist silly cunt. Fuck off.
So good.
I it was it was quite cathartic, Jack, when you uploaded that, because it you know so much dialectic, so much dialogue by the left, that, like, the jumble word salad. I mean, in some ways, she is just sort of some sort of projecting machine in my mind. She's just reiterating climate crisis, migrant climate migration, all the usual word salads that come from there. And that the guy who's what about our children, you effing c word, and all that sort of stuff. That is the mood of the public. We are beyond the point of debate. We are beyond the point of talking about this. That we're not interested.
Yeah, exactly. It was really funny to see her just completely become modeled in her speech. She had her lovely little, set statements to say to people about the climate crisis and how we need to take them in, how we blah 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 blah. And then that guy just comes in, effing and blinding, and completely throws her off. You can see she's, shaken and just does not know how to respond to somebody like that, straight up front in her face. Just after that, I started grilling her on, on whether it was fair to bring in people who are far more likely to sexually assault, and what about our kids, women and girls? And she was just like, well, I haven't seen those statistics, blah blah blah, because these people don't care to look at anything that even challenges them in any way at all. It is very funny, obviously, her being a local Green councillor from the Bow West, so just a little bit north of the Britannia Hotel way, still in East London. And now she's posting and tweeting all this stuff. I feel very, Kanye West to Taylor Swift, here. Like I made that bitch famous. So, if she ends up running for Green Party leader someday, you've kind of all got me to blame for that one, but also I can fix her. So
You know what? I have no I reckon she probably she has probably attended many functions, many classes. She has engaged in many debates. Maybe even read some Marx, Engels, Kant, things like that, and completely taken down by I mean, in my mind, I'm calling him Essex man. He may not be Essex man. He could be, but we'll call him Essex man from now on. Um, the greatest, I mean, all that sort of academic and training and just melted away. And I think, number one, he's probably the greatest philosopher, the master debater of all time. By but also, it. I think in that, I mean, it was perfect in the sense of it captured he captured the mood of the nation in one go, and how that he views the elite. I mean, in my mind, that mouthpiece was, she is the elite and he is the British people, and that is the mood there. And uh and to be honest, I don't wish her ill will, and I maybe she has come to, maybe she's regretted that. One thing I noticed, and this is something, because I've done a bit of like stagecoach acting training. I noticed when she was talking to you and others in the clip, and you're in the other clip, she doesn't necessarily look directly at people. She's sort of looking through them, and I'm guessing this speech that she did was she practiced it quite some time beforehand. I can usually tell if it's, she was practicing this sort of speech, and she probably had it all set up in her mind, and there'll be this great put down, and she'll own the chuds, the nasty little bigots in the streets and everything. And yeah, absolute shock and slap back to reality. In many ways, you can actually see, if you like freeze frame it, you can see like, rabbit in headlights moment. Absolutely incredible.
Yes, it definitely did seem very rehearsed, not straight from the heart, not pure, raw, unbridled passion like Essex Man or Cockney Man, whoever he was that put her down. It that's the thing with these people. They don't seem to want to ever truly confront and engage in debate with the other side, or even try and learn anything. It's all about getting, getting your little fact sheet, getting your little script all ready to go, and just spew it straight out at the chuds and get your epic chud owning points on x.com for doing so. But I've been watching. The only thing you really need to rehearse with these things is actually just getting your facts right, because I was slightly off by about a factor of 10 when I said how many times more likely Afghans and foreign people were to sexually assault than British nationals. I said about hundreds of times. It's about 22 times, which is still an insane amount. But obviously, in the second clip, I've still made myself look a little bit silly by not being totally up on my numbers. So, I mean, that's what I've been doing the past few days, making sure that I've actually got my facts down. So when I'm in an argument with people, when I engage spontaneously, passionately, speaking my mind, if I do need to pull a little nugget of wisdom, I know it's actually accurate, and so there's going to be no BBC Verify fact checkers coming for my ass.
Oh yeah, what was her name? Miriam's. I want to say
Mariana
I
Spring.
forget. Mariama Spring. That's right. Yeah, yeah. She's coming with the fact check board. I mean, yeah. This is the thing. You are right, and um, I think the reason why they don't engage is because number one, that they're not interested in for them. This isn't about you know, I have met, I've met sort of like a lot of these sort of mindset of these sorts of people. I mean, in their mind, that I think a lot of them, in their mind, World War II never ended. They're in a constant struggle with National Socialism, with fascism, and it's kind of like that mindset. It's not over. It's never over. There's always I mean, how in sort of history, they'll be saying about the Red Scare in the West. The Red Scare, the communists under every, in every alleyway and stuff. And I mean, some ways, some documents recently have proven that to be true. But it, that's projection, because that's how they view their political enemies. Under every corner, there's always a fascist lurking. There's always a National Socialist figure about. And so in their minds, and the problem that they got here is this isn't really even a political thing, as you said. This isn't a party political thing. This isn't a political maneuver. This is just straight up families who are terrified of. And bear in mind, these are towns where I don't know how many people, how many asylum seekers are at the hotel, like how many are in like Epping and stuff. I'm guessing what it's near enough full up. Do we actually? I guess we probably don't know the official numbers, but
Yeah, I would say, they usually, when they get these hotels, they will obviously fill them to capacity as much as they can, because obviously, the government is paying for the hotels, so you may as well use all of the buildings or all the rooms, within the property that you have available. So I would suggest the Bell Hotel is probably pretty full right now. Obviously, the Britannia is starting to feel, obviously, that it's completely new. I believe there's been some pictures of some migrants potentially coming in. We're not sure if they're there or whether they've been the hired private security. Certainly, there has been no obvious massive influx of migrants into the Britannia. But as I said, anyway, that had been the government plan for the Britannia has been to turn it into an overflow hotel for the coming summer boat crossings, basically. So that's been the plan of it. There was some confusion thinking that some of the migrants from the Epping would be moved into the Britannia, but that was just a coincidence in that it was announced basically at around the same time as the protest kicked off that the Britannia became available. But but in that case, it was just a coincidence. All of the migrants in Epping are still in the Bell Hotel, to the best of my knowledge.
right, no. And so yeah, that as we said, nothing has actually really officially changed. It's just the council protesting, um, you know, showing their protest. So very quickly, Jack, yesterday, you were at Waterlooville, and it was a quite. I mean, I've seen the clips. Decent turnout, quite a decent turnout there, protesting there. So, just explain what's going on there very quickly. What's happening there?
Yeah, so honestly, I think it was one of the biggest turnouts I've seen so far. It might have been bigger than Norwich, definitely bigger than the recent days in Epping. Probably around 1,000 people, unironically. Maybe it was because they were packed into the centre of town, I'm not sure, and less spread out. But there was still a really, really big number, nowhere near the scale that I was expecting, given the relatively low interactions on the Facebook page that was organising this protest. But this is going on about not the hotels, but on the other side of the things, which is the putting the asylum seekers in private accommodation. The Havant Borough Council, currently Labour and Lib Dem, they're not blocking plans to put migrants in private flats above the main thoroughfare. Now, some reporting, I think the Daily Mail and other people have been saying that, oh, they're putting them in really, really expensive flats in the nice bit of town. No, they're not. They're putting them in the flats above the shops in the precinct. Though I had a few locals say to me that, oh, they'd been annoyed that there was this fake news that where they're putting them in. So it actually was just right where they're.
Yes. Um.
Am I still
Oh,
connected? Yes. There we go. Slight technical difficulties there. But yeah, so there was one point where a few sort of leftists who were there were again chased out of the crowd. This again happened in Norwich on Saturday, where agitators tried to get into the crowd, and they weren't beaten up, they weren't attacked, they weren't had bottles glassed on the top of their heads. They were just peacefully but forcefully shoved out of the protest, and that's again what happened in Waterlooville just yesterday. It's great. I've been seeing a lot of the protests have really been what I like to say peacefully angry, in that
right.
there's shouting, there's screaming, there's threatening, there's chants, there's again, getting right up in police officers' faces, but not actually engaging in violence, not going that one step further. So it's all just words, it's all just anger, but being nicely controlled just below the level at which, so you can't get headlines of violent far right Nazi fascist thugs. It's just angry local people. And that is, I think, the level that they need to keep it at in order to keep the protests calm, carrying on and spreading, and also, what would be, a victory against the mainstream media, who are just begging, for this to turn into Southport to, Flashpoint, complete fiery riots.
Yeah, and this is the inevitable problem when you have a and when I say mob, I don't mean in a pejorative sense, like any negative connotation. But the thing though is you do need to have some structure, some organization, because otherwise, what I mean, Southport, as you said, because I know you covered that and you got yourself quite embroiled with it, and yeah, and got the sort of scars from it, that and everything. When it's like that, it's a very scary atmosphere. I know it's a very scary atmosphere. I've was caught up in when I was a bit younger in the Celtic and Rangers match and their supporters and everything. And luckily, I managed to jump into a shop. And this was when I was on holiday in Scotland. But so I know when you have that sort of when those sorts of things break out. But yeah, I mean, you're right. And when it comes to the protests, is it the agitators? Are these people who are posing to be on your side and then want to start a fight with the police or start a fight with the counter protesters, or are these people who are just counter protesters and walking in to stir the pot sort of thing and start a fight?
Yeah, it's the latter of the two. I haven't seen anyone who's supposedly been on the side of people protesting in asylum hotels trying to start stuff off. There's been a couple of people probably who have been, but they haven't been like infiltrators, from the left, etc. So it has been people trying to kick stuff off, has been the left 99 times out of 100 that I've seen over the last few weeks. They're the ones that really want to cause trouble. And again, it's a propaganda victory for them if they do start it off. So
Oh yeah, I mean they I mean, for me, one thing that stands out in my mind, Jack, last year was after the I guess you could see the peak of the violence from Southport. You had what was it? You had this supposed massive demo that was meant to be organized by the right across the country. It was meant to be on WhatsApp and everything. And I mean, I know quite a few people from like the sort of nationalist scene right across the political spectrum who were like, we know nothing about this. And so immediately in my mind, I was like, oh, this is not a real thing. This is going. I was saying to people, don't go, because this is going to be a setup trap or whatever. And what it was people like the Unison, the union types organizing stand up to racism, Antifa, and all that sort of stuff, flooding the streets. And every single newspaper in the country was like, we won, we beat the bigots, we beat the far right. And you know and this is what they, as you said, this is what they hope for, this is what they hope can be achieved. But I mean, so from now, it looks like this is spreading across the country at various sites. Um, is there any sign that this will sort of fade away, or is this is this going to be dominating the summer?
yeah, it's going to continue. I know there are planned protests. I just have here on the 8th of August at 6 p.m. There is the Abolish Asylum Day, which is being held in, I'll just list the locations, being held at the Potters Hotel in Aldershot, Britannia Hotel in Bournemouth, Chichester Park in Chichester, the Thistle City Hotel in London, which is where I'll be, at the Brook Hotel in Norwich, the Royal Beach Hotel in Portsmouth, Highfield House in Southampton, Britannia Hotel in Wolverhampton. And they've been saying it's a national solidarity for the protection of women and children. So that's been organised for next week, of course. There's more protests that are going this week. And, I believe there's going to be more organised after that. I think at the very least, this is going to continue either, completely organically or planned a little bit by local people and, coordinated across various WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups. That seems to be where everyone is sort of working together on this. The meta platforms, Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram,
Yeah.
so on and so forth. So I can see it continuing. At the very least, the only thing that I can't see what would stop it exactly. There are perhaps in individual locations, people might get a little bit tired, but across the country, there's always new ones. I'm going to one today where there's a protest for the first time. And obviously it's been almost 2 weeks, well, about 2 weeks since Epping kicked off. So there can be another 2 weeks and then something else will start. Another 2 weeks, there'll be another location.
Yeah.
So because they're going to be repeated in various places, some might die down, but it'll be like the Hydra, one might die down, but two more protests will pop up afterwards.
Yeah, and the tragedy in all this is totally unavoidable. It's totally avoidable. This was a situation entirely created by Whitehall, by the civil service, by Labour and Tory governments, and by all the parties and in the local government as well that you mentioned. This is all a monster of their own creation, and they have no one else to blame but themselves. And thank you. I mean, it's been really good that you've been able to report on this. And and one final bit on the Epping stuff. There is a school round the corner, a school round the corner, and when you delve into this, and I see a lot of people from America and people who I know, what they can't fathom is actually how dark some of this is. The actual undertones of this, that there is a very dark element to what this is, because it feels very vindictive by the state, that they are deliberately targeting these sorts of communities, these sorts of people. I mean, the people in Epping, for example, a lot of them are the old East End types who were removed from London, who were forced out of London because of foreign aliens coming into the UK and settling there. And so there was a lot of many really they are the true asylum seekers in this story in many ways. But yeah. But anyway, no, Jack, you continue what you're doing, and thank you so much for coming on here. And do check out Jack Hadfield on Twitter. Jack, if you want to promote anything of yours or a link or anything, do send it to me, because I can put it in this video afterwards. No, but I'll put the link for his Twitter account, and you can check out all those videos on there. So thanks everyone for watching, and thank you, Jack, for coming on this
Thank you for
afternoon.
having me.
No worries, this has been great, and I will see you all next time.